You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional love coach and matchmaker. If you haven't lately, go to wedeepen.com, check out all the upcoming social and transformational experiences that we have woven together to support you in having an epic love life. I am recording this podcast. It is the fall of 2023, and there is a really special experience coming up in February of 2024. So if you're listening to this before then, take note. If not, feel free to, fast forward a few seconds or just listen, because this experience is going to keep repeating and you don't want to miss out on it. Kimmy Inch here in Austin, Texas, where I am recording from, hosts a 4-day immersion called Something More. I took the experience. You can listen. I think it's episode 108, of course, 108. We unpack my time at Something More. We're going to talk a little bit about sex today. A lot of you who are listening, I imagine if you want an epic love life, that comes with having a fully expressed sexual life as well, and maybe being on a journey of self-discovery around that. Something More is one of those experiences that you can go to with a partner or on your own. I went by myself. Half of the room is couples, half of the room is people who are solo and single, and you explore eroticism in a classroom style setting. Most of us didn't grow up observing healthy relationships, and our educational curriculum pretty much neglects the subject altogether. So now as grownups, we get to have fun and probably have a more immersive experience than we could have as teenagers anyway. And the experience, she takes you through your erotic blueprints, learning flogging, shibari, and it is a way to more deeply connect with yourself, discover, what it is that you desire to create in your intimate, private, or public life, depending on who you are, as well as ways to expand your imagination with a partner. One of my intentions with my work and We Deepen is that I would love to hear, oh my gosh, my phone is ringing. Sorry, guys. Oops. Let's hang that up because I can't talk right now. I record a podcast. This is real life. You're listening in real life. As I was saying, one of my goals, I would love to see the terms cheating and infidelity eradicated. Mm-hmm. And when you are expanding when you're living a life, I guess, of novelty and mystery, and you're also practicing love, whether it's with a partner or without a partner at a specific period of time, and you're opening up the portals to have more deeper conversations about your desires and intentions. And I believe that experiences like what Kimmy Inch is doing and Something More is one of those. So it's on the front page of wedeepen.com right now. There's 2 weekends coming up, February 5th through the 8th and February 11th through the 15th. The holiday season is coming up. I highly recommend getting 2 tickets if you're in partnership with a significant other. If get Christmas gifts from your family, ask for it. It's also a great gift to give for weddings. If you have friends getting married, give them Something More. Valentine's Day, it all aligns. Perfect timing. Check that out. And also there's many other upcoming social and transfers. It's so funny. I'm sorry, guys. My landlord keeps calling in the moment. I'm in the process of moving. And again, you're following with me through real life. So you're in the mix of it all. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do rate, subscribe, like it, follow it, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it, helps me continuing to host it. And the last thing I'll mention before I jump into the conversation, which again, we're going to talk about sex today, is the Love Club. the Love Club the first cohort is beginning December 5th. 36 people max will journey through an intimacy accelerator, which includes peer-to-peer matchmaking, comprehensive relationship education, and accountability to your love goals. So you never have to feel alone in your search for epic love this lifetime again. You can get off the dating apps, be in person, we'll vibe off of each other's energy, we'll learn together, and we'll relationship in community. If that interests you, at wedeepen.com, you can see a link in the nav that says Love Club. Hit that and come and apply. And we'll have a conversation. You'll have an interview. And if it seems like a fit, join us in the Love Club. Okay, so today's guest, Susan Bratton, and I first met at the biohacking conference in Orlando this past year. I saw her keynote talk with Dave Asprey at the conference, and also we got to sit together at the same table during the VIP dinner. And I was inspired. I'm always looking around for who are my mentors in love and who are people that I can share with you. Like, I'm gathering the relationship industry, putting it all together and coming and present it to you. Because as you know, if you've been listening to this podcast for some time, I was a pharmaceutical rep at one point in my life. I'd prefer to sell love than to sell pharmaceutical medications. And
love is a drug.
Love is a drug. Love is that is actually one of the, I had said that just the other day. I had said, everybody is, there's so many addictions out there, but I think the real addiction is,
might as well face it,
is human connection. Like, we are addicted to each other. We want to be together with each other, but we just don't know how to fully do it consciously because we lack the role models to be able to do it. So thank you for speaking up
butting in before I'm introduced.
And being so charismatic about it. You really are. I mean, I wish I was sharing a video with you guys today because Susan is like sparkling and beautiful. It looks like that she's in the backdrop of about to be on CNN today to tell us all about how to have better sex lives. So thank you for being a part of the show and joining me on Deep In with Christina.
I've been looking forward to being here, my precious angel. It's so nice to spend time with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as we were, let's just jump right into it because we were having a little, setting this conversation up. You had mentioned this idea of talking about new partners, and with the Love Club beginning, and a lot of my audience is currently single, or maybe they're in relationships, but they're seeking to enliven those relationships. However, a lot of people are starved for intimate connection. And when we meet somebody that we're attracted to, there's like, we want to jump into bed and have that experience. But then the anxiety, pegs us. Did we have the right conversations? Have we talked it out? Are we really aligned? And you had mentioned that you feel as though you've gotten to a place where you're doing this well.
Yeah. I think the last couple of decades of being someone who's authored thousands of sex techniques and bedroom communication skills and something I call intimate wellness, which actually is one of the places that I think it's good to start a conversation when you're interested in someone sensually, sexually, and heart connectedly. And so those are really the three legs of a strong and great sex life. It's, do I have skill? Do I understand how to co-create pleasure? And I'd love to talk about some approaches to that. How am I at communicating my needs, and how is my partner at receiving that communication? My level of confidence and conversation, which then kind of escalates to sensual talk and using the eroticism of our sensuality, because being verbal is a very sensual part of our sexuality. So communication skills. And then that third piece on intimate wellness, honestly, it starts with a really honest conversation about STIs. I mean, you can, be interested in someone, but if one of the very first things, when you realize that you have a physical attraction to someone, if one of the very first things isn't an honest conversation around safe sex, then it just makes everything more awkward. When you kind of put on your big girl panties and have the talk, sexual history, what are your requirements? What are your boundaries? How do you like to approach your sexuality? I actually think that is something that distinguishes you from, like it kind of makes you a professional level relationship person who's out to keep everyone physically safe. And there is a lot to be said for even that part of it. So I think it's an area of conversation we should also talk about. But yeah, I feel like I have an ability now to feel very confident if I'm with a new partner, navigate that and make it a lot of fun and easy. Performance anxiety, as a sexpert, performance anxiety is really the number one thing that people deal with. That's what often keeps women in, distance from their orgasmic pleasure. It's what makes men get in their heads instead of be in their bodies and feel like they can't last long enough. And so these are some of the things that I'd like to surface are, how do you negotiate relationships as a mature person who wants to play full out and have the most amount of pleasure and connection possible? What does that look like?
I always start at intimate wellness.
Yeah.
And having the conversation about sexual transmitted diseases.
Yeah. Yep. So there are over 20 STIs. And the interesting thing about condoms is that, honestly, they don't catch a lot of it. They catch a few things, a few important things, but they don't catch a lot of things. Interestingly enough, most STIs are skin to skin contact transmission. And the more you know about STIs, the more disgusted you become. It's super gross unless you're a really sciencey girl and you like to talk about things like bacterias and protozoas and spirochetes and things like that, which I do. So let me just tell you how I do it, and you can take it or leave it. But essentially, when I meet someone that I'd like to be intimate with, and first thing I do is I check out their personal values to make sure I'm a values match with the person. What are their, and this is what's important to me, different people have or different relationship values. But one of the things that's important to me is that they are stable and kind, that they are honest, all the basics, but also that they match me in my political leanings, which are very liberal. I believe all people are equal. Women should have bodily autonomy, things like that. And so I stick the fork in there because I'm an immediate no to someone who doesn't share my life and societal values. Then the second thing, that if I like them and I want to get close to them, then I have this kind of A level and B level relationship I can have at a physical level. And this works in play parties and, any kind of social situation where you're with other people and you're like, oh, that person is hot, wonder what it would be like to make out with them. So the very first thing that I think about in my life is that I have A-level contact and B-level contact. And A-level contact, and it doesn't matter what's the A and what's the B, but there's two levels. And one level is this pretty darn safe level. And that is, you can make out with them, kiss. You can put hands on them, including their genitals, but no mouth to genital or genital to genital contact. Because that's where the intersection of most STI transmission actually happens. Hands are pretty good barrier, and you can go wash them. And I also watch what I touch and where I put my hands if I'm in that kind of connection. So I am free with all of my other partners and so are they, to have a makeout with anyone they want without even asking the rest of us if they can do it. That's free. Anyone can do it. And then the second level is they have to be what's called screened in. And a screening group, I'm in a screened group. I'm in a group with other lovers. And some of my lovers are only lovers with me. Others of them have other lovers I'm not lovers with, but they're monogamous with my partner. And so I don't have to worry that they're also sleeping around, and then that gets out of control. So there's a boundary around what these practices are. And then that keeps us safe. And what we do is we go and get tested before we screen into our group. So if I had a new lover and I'd made out with them and I liked the way they kissed and I liked the way they smelled and I liked the way they tasted and I liked who they were and I wanted more, then they would have to be tested. And there are a dozen things we test for. And that's not the standard test. It's a much wider test. It includes things like Hep C and trichomoniasis and not just chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis. And I do test for HSV 1 and 2, herpes 1 and 2, not because I wouldn't have sex with someone who had herpes, because I also do. It's a very, very common infection. But the problem is that, and there's many kinds of herpes, just like there are many kinds of HPV, 49 known varieties of HPV as an example, which I also test for. Herpes, if a person doesn't know they have it, then they could be spreading it. For example, herpes lesions don't necessarily always show up on mouths and genitals. They're not just isolated to the lips, if you will. They're also often found at the ganglion nerve bundle on the by the base of the spine. And I've actually had a partner who was screened in, and he knew he had herpes, and I knew he had herpes. And one day he came for a date, and I do a body scan. I look at everything. I just check it all out, because he was kind of a big marauder guy, big muscly guy, one of my archetypes I like. And he had what he thought was a zit on his butt. And it was obviously a herpes lesion. It was obviously a zoster. And I was like, oh no, that's a zoster. So what I did was I covered it up. I completely encased it in a waterproof bandage, put some topical acyclovir on it, covered it up. And then I wouldn't worry about it literally spreading to me, because that's how herpes spreads. It spreads from the lesions to other human beings. And so I think that a lot of times if someone doesn't know they have it, they could be spreading it. And that's why I think it's really important to be aware of it. And so once a person has screened in, and this is another thing, this system relies on integrity, Christina. Like, someone could get their tests and then they could go have sex with somebody else. I had a partner recently who I had paid for her tests. And she got her test, and then things, happened, and we didn't quite get a chance to get together. And then Burning Man came up, and she went to Burning Man, and she had some experiences, and she went to a party right after and had some experiences. And then she called me and she said, hey, I haven't really had, I really didn't have that much, with other people. And I was wondering, you don't really need me to go take another round of STIs, do you? I mean, it's expensive. I was paying for it. It's expensive. And, the chances are so low. What your people aren't going to mind, are they? And I was like, yeah, baby, they're going to mind. I'm a big no to that. Absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, when I paid for those tests, I told you this was my window for our relationship. And I don't have that window now. I'm busy doing some other things. I've got other people to fuck. In all honesty, I've got some people coming over for the holidays, and this is what I'm doing. And I don't have time to also have sex with you. And so I was just like super fucking clear about it. And she was like, oh, okay. And it was like lesson learned for her, I think. And it also just made me feel really good. Like, I protect my people. Nope, no bugs ain't getting in through my portals. And the biggest issue I have is that that we do not really understand the long-term effects of even things like herpes. Herpes lives, and I've had it since I was 20 and my boyfriend cheated on me and gave it to me. And it's been a very painful part of my life. It's never stopped me from having sex with anyone, I don't think. And I've told everyone my whole life, and it always gets easier. It's funny, we're turning this into a herpes issue, or like a herpes episode. But honestly, it's a big thing that people struggle with, right?
They do. Having the conversations is so hard. I have many friends who, and I do believe that people who have herpes end up in relationships that maybe aren't even the right relationships for them, or they suppress their full on sexual desires because they feel as though they have this secret that they can't tell anybody about. And one person has accepted the secret. So they're going to stay in that connection, and they're not going to go and explore because, gosh, the having to share that with somebody, another person, that's could be re-traumatizing if there's not consciousness subjective. And it's also so secretive, again, that this isn't an open conversation. A lot of people are struggling in private with what they do about this.
And that's the bummer for me. There's two things I think about it. One is that we don't know what the long-term effects are, because the herpetic virus is dormant in the ganglion nerve bundles, the trigeminal and the sciatic, basically the lower ganglion nerve bundle. And that's why it presented on his butt, because that's where the ganglion nerve bundle is. It's right around your dimples on your butt, right around the base of your spine. And then the one in your head from the HSV1, what they would have called the oral herpes, but honestly, now they're all transferred back and forth. That's an old kind of a model. That one lives in your trigeminal nerve, which is the nerve that serves your face. And there's something called trigeminal neuralgia, which is this extremely painful, like they say, you want to kill yourself. It hurts so much. They have to cut the nerves or cut the myelin off the sheath of the nerves with cyber knives and stuff like that. Well, I just wonder, and this is complete conjecture, but I just wonder what exacerbates trigeminal neuralgia other than something like a trigeminal viral infection. Like it could be, we don't know. And so I just like to play it super safe. It gets easier. If people didn't think that sex was shameful, they wouldn't associate herpes with shame. So it's still rooted in patriarchal religion that you're a sinner if you have sex. And so you got this sexually transmitted disease. And so now you're a sinner and you should be in shame and all that. Like if we could just get out of underneath that and go, wow, we've been just passing bugs to each other of all kinds, all the times, our whole history. And this one just happens to sometimes get passed through genital contact. Let it go. It's just a thing. But it's a thing that you have to be careful about. And it gets easier to tell people the more you say it. That lump in your throat inevitably goes away as you have the practice of being honest and loving yourself and forgiving yourself for getting it and understanding that when you know you have a breakout, you must abstain. I've been married to my husband for 30 years and he's never gotten herpes from me because I abstain during breakouts. So it's manageable if we're armed with information. And so I think the early conversation, just kind of bring it all back, the early conversation, the grown-up conversation around desire starts with testing.
How does one tell somebody that they have herpes?
I want to let you know that I have herpes. You're going to see that as a positive on my test. I have both oral and genital herpes. I got the oral from my mom as a child. I got the genital from someone who cheated on me in my 20s. I have had them my whole life, and I don't think that I've ever given them to anyone that I am aware of in any way because I manage to abstain. I manage them and I abstain from contact with them if I have an outbreak. I get outbreaks when I get stressed, but I generally don't. And no other person's ever said no to me. But if it makes you uncomfortable and it's a non-starter for you, I'll be very disappointed that I won't be able to be intimate with you, but I will understand.
So good.
It's like friggin' simple, right?
And the person on the other end of that, how do they decide if that works for them or not?
They know in their heart. They just know. I just don't want to risk it. I've never had it, and I really like you, and I feel so badly about not being able to do more. I mean, I could make out with you if it's not, an oral herpes outbreak or whatever, maybe, or whatever, but I don't know. I just think for me right now, it just feels like too big a risk. I'm going to pass, but I think you're super hot and super sexy, and I don't want you to feel badly about it. I understand. And I really, really, really thank you for having the courage to tell me. Mm. Or, hey, almost every partner I've ever been with has had herpes, and I've never gotten it. As long as you're aware when you have an outbreak and you abstain, I'm fine with that. It's no big deal for me. Let's just keep being as honest as possible together.
Now, many people are out there and they're dating for long-term relationships, swiping on dating apps. They're, scheduling dinner dates and then going to the movies and hanging out. They haven't gotten to intimacy just yet. So they're building rapport. Should they wait to have this conversation until they're about to get into the bedroom?
I would say when you know you want to have sex with that person, that's when you should say, I think I'm getting intimately attracted to you. And there's something that I need you to know. Number one, that I'm the kind of person who wants to have safe sex tests before we're intimate. And number two, I want to let you know that I have herpes HSV1 or HSV2, but that I'm very aware of it and that I abstain from sex when I have it. And that, to my knowledge, I've never given it to anyone, but I understand that if that's too risky for you, that's okay.
Great. You and I met through the biohacking conference and Dave Asprey. He told me before about, I believe it's BTS, which is
BHT.
BHT.
Yeah, BHT. Mm-hmm.
Do you know, can you share about that as well?
Yeah, there's a guy, I forget his name, but he feels like BHT keeps herpes suppressed. I tried BHT for a while and I didn't really notice any particular difference, but it could be. There are things like acyclovir, topical as well as oral. There's also BHT as a possibility, but just generally, no one's ever been able to eradicate the virus, but you can keep it suppressed. And for some people, BHT you could just Google the protocol. There is a protocol and I forget what it is, but just Google BHT herpes protocol. Download PDF.
Great. Yeah. Because I did
try.
It's worth a try. I did share with a client in the past who was having a hard time with having these conversations and wanting to put an end to the conversations. I think something though, what you just shared, the transmission of how you have the conversation would be supportive for, creating intimacy with two people, whether or not they utilize something like BHT. It's not necessarily about like, you have to get rid of this right now and your whole life is going to end. It's more of like, how do I have a
manage it? It's just a virus. It's the same as Epstein-Barr. That's another herpes virus. You can have Epstein-Barr flare-ups. When you get really exhausted or ill, Epstein-Barr can flare. And it's literally what they call the kissing disease. You can give it to someone else. So it's another herpes virus, but no one's embarrassed that they got Epstein-Barr. But almost like a large majority of the population has it. And it's another herpetic virus. It's the same as chickenpox. That's a one-time habit, but then it ends up giving you shingles, which is the long-term downstream effect from a herpes virus.
How did you come to be so sexually open?
Well, so I've always liked sex. I've always wanted good sex. And I've generally found for the first few decades of my sexual life, my 20s and my 30s, that it kind of eluded me. I'd have glimpses of it, but I can remember that there were times when I thought, what if it's all bullshit and there's no such real thing and everybody's faking it? I had like paranoid moments about like, what if it's all bullshit? But then I'd have these little glimpses, like, somebody who like ate my pussy really well. And I'm like, oh God, it is possible, and a really good kisser or whatever. And I never really found anybody who was like kind of all the package. But then I met my husband, Tim, and I really liked having sex with him. I liked his body. I liked the way he was in bed. It was really nice. And I married him and I was with him. We were married for it was our 11th wedding anniversary. So 12 years being together, 12 years having sex. And we were monogamous at the time. Back then, we were in a monogamous relationship and I was avoiding him for sex. I didn't want to have sex with him anymore because it turns out I never orgasmed from intercourse. And pretty much we always had intercourse. And I could have an orgasm from using a vibrator, but I just got tired of it. And we had our daughter and I had a really good career in the Silicon Valley. Like I was just like on fucking fire. And so he used to try everything. He would beg me. He would try to do, honeydew things. He would, he just tried everything. And I just was like, I don't know. And I think that the reason I tell that story is that I honestly think that this is what happens to most heterosexual monogamous couples over time, that where if she doesn't naturally come by having orgasms from intercourse, because some women do, they're lucky. They're like, boom, it just happens for me. I like it. And they're in a partnership with a male bodied person. And if they don't come, then they think it's just them. Women always think it's them. It's got to be an artifact of estrogen dominance that women are just like, it's my fault. It just drives me crazy. And I just thought it was me. And so then he just thought it was me, but it's like, well, hey, we're not going to stop fucking. And so we decided to do something about it instead of get divorced. And it was interesting that you started off this episode with regard to, you want to get rid of the words infidelity and cheating, because at the time, what he had done was have a relationship. He'd had these serial relationships with women who were married to men who didn't have sex with them. And so basically, Tim and his girlfriend, his lover, were getting their needs met and allowing themselves to stay in their relationship. He didn't want to give up his wife. He loves me. He didn't want to give up his relationship with his daughter and break up his marriage and all this stuff. So he was coping. And it was interesting because when I first found out that he had this lover on the side, I felt so much shame. I felt like I was the failure. Again, took it on myself. And I talked to this therapist who does the work of Byron Katie. Byron Katie's thing is called The Work. And she said, darling, he didn't have an affair and he didn't do anything to you in that affair. He was trying to stay with you. It was a coping mechanism. And I was like, I felt totally different about it. Like it really changed my cheating into fidelity into it was a coping mechanism. I really get that. How can I fix this? I want to have hot sex with my husband. For a while, he even thought, well, maybe I married a lesbian, like he just couldn't believe anybody didn't want to have sex, And so what had happened was I'd been abused by my stepfather repeatedly as a child. And so when I was penetrated, I would dissociate. And so I was never heart connected with him during lovemaking. So we went to a therapist and she really helped me come through that process to forgiveness of my transgressor and helped me stay in heart connection and visual connection with my husband during lovemaking. At the same time, we went to sex workshops, which were super fucking edgy for me. And we went to these sex workshops. We went to Human Awareness Institute. We learned orgasmic meditation and expanded orgasm. We did tantric lovemaking workshops. We did all kinds of things. And man, it was like a switch just flipped. I mean, Christina, all of a sudden I could stay present. I started coming. We learned what to do. And it was so easy that we had this massive renaissance in our relationship. And we said, we need to start a company because we were internet nerds. We need to take these kind of workshops and put them online so that anyone anywhere in the world can learn how fucking easy it is to be great in bed once someone tells you what to do. And that's 2 decades ago, what started me on the journey of being this intimacy expert to millions. That's what my publicist likes for my title, intimacy expert to millions, because it goes down easy. My title that I like is trusted hot sex advisor to millions, because I'm about hot sex. I am hot myself.
You are.
And I love to give people advice. I'm like, you should not be a sex advisor if you're not fucking hot. Like, I love to be hot. I love to be sexually self-expressed. I'm 62 years old and having the best sex of my life. And I want people to know that that is the only difference between me and you is a couple of decades, and I learned how to do it. So that's the story of kind of how I got here, how I started. I took all my mentors' work and turned it into information products that could be digitally delivered. And then I started studying and writing and learning everything, one thing after another, after another. And here's the most interesting thing of it all. And then I will take a breath. But I am currently being filmed. There's a documentary being made about my story and my life by a cause-based documentary filmmaker who does incredible work. And the reason that my story is interesting is twofold. Number one, it's not my story. It's like everybody's story. It's just like everybody's story. I am not special. I am not unique. I just talk about my journey. The second thing is that the techniques that we started teaching 2 decades ago to this day have stood the test of time. There is an ecosystem of sex techniques for the kind of lovemaking that I'm interested in teaching people how to do. And that is heart-connected, conscious, passionate lovemaking. It's not performative. It's not at all like pornography. It is, I am here. I am not hiding. I am in love with myself and you. My heart is opening and opening and opening. My pleasure is expanding and expanding and expanding. My connection fuels me. It's my vitality. And I am unabashedly proud and into my sex life. That's the kind of techniques that I like to teach people. So that's, I don't know how we got here, but here we are.
Wow, this is so good. There's a lot to unpack in all that you have just shared. You know, one of the things that first comes to mind, I remember I was living in New York City and I had a stint as a commercial real estate broker. And there was a man who was 82 years old, had a large garage on 23rd Street in the city. And I kept, I was trying to get him to sell it. We had buyers. We wanted him to sell it. And I befriended this man and I would go and sit and just talk to him for hours. And he, of course, he loved me because I'm much younger than him. And I would again sit and talk to him for hours. And he had the dream that he would come back in his next lifetime and be Hugh Hefner. And he shared with me that him and his wife had been together for, 40, 50 years. And that she had told him, and he believes that after women go through menopause, they don't have sex anymore. They're done.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's rooted in religious patriarchy, where we women are useless after we can no longer make more babies for your religion.
Well,
whatever
she told
it
him
is.
this.
Right. Well, that's what she believed.
Yeah. Well, I think
Because she lives
it.
in the patriarchy.
And true. And also too, maybe of being together with someone for 40 years. And if you haven't sexually opened your relationship, there's probably a little bit of, for me, my longest relationship has been 4 to 5 years in my 20s. And I remember towards the end of that relationship, and this is pre-discovery of everything there is out there in the relational realm, those pre-TED Talks. And I remember going to the bookstore and started reading, like, we've been together 4 years. How am I going to like enliven this sexual dynamic? I mean, at the time, I'd never heard of the term poly, didn't exist. Open relationships was never talked about.
Yeah.
There was no play parties that I had known of. And it was just like, we need to figure this out. Like, what toys can I bring in? Let's go to the sex shop on the Lower East Side. But I didn't know what was possible. So yeah, I'd love to unpack first off. Yeah, I guess it's definitely a misconception around as women age that they completely lose their sex drive and they dry up and it's done at that point.
That's completely erroneous. That's just bullshit.
And then second is I'm curious around, as you are, you've been married for 30 years.
Yeah.
You had said that 11 years into the relationship is when,
things came to a head.
There's a couple that is coming to mind who participate in Relate Fest. They have 2 teenage children. They're in an open relationship. They've been together for about 20 years. And it was kind of 7 years into the relationship that both of them were like, do you really care about being monogamous? And neither of them cared about it. So, but they're one of those couples that I admire. Like, I've been around them before and they really fully love each other. However, for the most part, I see out in the world of like polyamory seems kind of leaky and so much energy to navigate. And so I guess you had 11 years of it to bond in an experience together before opening up a relationship to now, as you shared, of having a pod or, a screening group.
Yeah. Polypod. Yeah. Kitchen table polypod.
And we also started to open up this podcast of how somebody sets up, a relational sexual dynamic. How does one even get, like, what would you recommend for 2 people coming together and going on a journey for potentially a longer, you never know how long a period of time is going to be, but like they both have a desire to potentially be in a fulfilling long-term relationship. How does one set it up so it's safe from the beginning?
Yeah. We've been open longer than we've been not open now in our marriage. And we've had lots of different variations of what open and poly look like. We've never been swingers or in the lifestyle part of that tree with the many branches of options to monogamy because of our STI focus. So safety is really one of our primary pieces of our poly relationship. And it has not always been good. The first time my husband saw another man make love to me, it took him about 2 weeks of feeling abject depression when he saw my response to that man and how it didn't match my response to him. Because it was new, it was exciting, it was different. And there was some incredible connection and pheromones, and it was completely a sexual relationship. It wasn't all the other things my husband and I have to take care of, like our child, our families, our houses, our businesses, are all the things that are also part of what we do. And so we also, I recently had to ask my husband to give up a relationship that he was in. I was feeling extremely lonely and ignored. And I think that, I didn't trust her. I really felt like she was trying to get my husband to leave me. And I'm like, bitch, no. So that has not been easy. That has been very difficult for us to navigate because, I have two boyfriends. And it's like, well, how come you get to have two boyfriends? And well, because they're not trying to get me to leave you, dude. So like it can be very hard, very upsetting. But I'm honestly, Christina, I am so proud of myself for being like, this is my fucking boundary, man. And like, I just can no longer tolerate you in this particular relationship. I am not against you having relationships. They have to be additive to my life as well. I can't lose you in it. I need you to stay in relationship with me too, and so it just kind of got carried away. And, so there have been wonderful times and there have been just miserable times, but in all of it, I mean, I got to the point in my relationship with my husband this year where I was like, I think you're going to have to go. I think you should leave me and I think you should go with her now. If you can't stop seeing her, I don't want to live. I've given you 2 years notice on this. I've been as patient as I can be. You keep coming back to me and going against my wishes. I think you got to go. Like, I think I just need relief from this now. I can't believe I'm saying this. We literally celebrated our 30th year this year. And he didn't go. He didn't go. And I was like, okay, then now I fight for you with everything I've got because he's my person. He is my life person. And I think that's a really important thing around poly. And what the other people in my poly group love about us is that we are mom and dad, the stable base. We're the stable base. And people can come into a loving, kind, stable base and feel like they are part of a family. It's more than just being my lover or Tim's lover or our lover. It's more than just the threesomes or the foursomes or whatever it is. We are actually involved in your life and care about everything about you. And we love you to be with us. And if it can't be that, and there's this like second tier of person that's an untrusted person in the group, that can't go on. So I think I want to set aside how I've navigated or how we've navigated our kitchen table poly scenarios in the good times and the bad times and go to, hey, I don't want to be poly. I'm single. Not me personally, a person listening. If you're listening and you're like, okay, enough of the poly, that's not for me. I'm just looking for the love of my life. Let's get on with it here. What do I need to do to have super hot sex till the day I die? How do I have a really comfortable relationship with somebody? How do I get off on the right foot with them? What would you do when you show up with a new lover that I could learn that would make my sex life the best I've ever had, the thing that I've been dreaming of when I wondered in my paranoid, am I paranoid and am I delusional that this could actually be? No, you are not. It is possible. So what are some of those things getting past the STI conversation? What does that look like? I guess that's probably where we're ending up here, right?
We can end up there. There's still, I feel like, some openness in the previous conversation. I would like to loop back to that as well. And I think this all still goes hand in hand with it. Number one is like, as we're entering these relationships, there's a thing that you never want to take someone's sovereignty. People want to feel free.
I love that word.
And there is, and in that wanting the other one to feel free, it's both people have to be able to feel free. So sometimes you can think that like, if I say, no, this doesn't work for me, I'm caging the other person. However, relationships are a free will experience. You opt into them over and over again. You can leave at any time. I was just recapping with a girlfriend of a previous relationship of mine. And after we ended, months later, him and I sat across from each other and he looked at me, he said, it's both of our faults that things didn't work out. And I remember looking at him and thinking into myself, like, it is not my fault. It is all your fault. And it hit me and I clicked and I was like, actually, you know what? I stayed too long. I stayed too long in this connection. So I developed some, resentment or grudge towards you, but we weren't married. I didn't need to stay in it. I hadn't committed to anything like that. So you're right. It is both of our faults for how this had turned out. And not everybody is meant to be with you for a long term. So there's no failure inside of that experience either. Yeah. But I before like we jump further into this, because I think this all goes together, even in setting up a relationship from the start, is as you're in this experience of with your partner and putting your foot down and saying, no, this doesn't work for me. On the other end, I imagine partly the hard thing is like, you don't want your partner to feel trapped, and you don't want them to resent you. You don't want to create some dynamic where they're like, oh, this is bad if I go and talk to this other person, because from a psychological standpoint, we enjoy doing the things we're not supposed to do sometimes. Like there's a level of excitement towards that, and a level of then now you bond them in a different way because you're the one who says they can't be together. And so I think that there's a little fear that we have in that particular dynamic. Like, I don't want to tell him or her they can't be with this other person, because then I become this other person over here that these two then are bonding over because they can't be together because of me. Yeah. So that I think is really interesting of, and I have, I see too in this idea of like the free love movement, is that there's then also becomes this like suppression of like what we really desire, and we start to compromise ourselves for situations and end up in relationships that aren't really true for us in the first place. For example, another two female friends of mine who are dating, they were practicing this, like, you, go be free out in the world. And one would go out and they would make out with somebody else, and they would come home and tell the other that they just made out. And the other would then process for weeks of like how upset they were that they made out with another person. And I'm like, why don't you just tell her that you want the lips, like you want to own her lips, and they are your lips because that is actually how you feel. And she's like, oh, but I can't. And this and that. I'm like, no, but you want to own her pussy. You want to own her lips. You want to own these things. And so there's this,
all the lips are mine.
All the lips are mine. Exactly. So they were tormenting ourselves, our own psyche. And I think some of it is like reaching our edges to even uncover what we do want. So some of it, it's like love is an experiment. Life is an experiment. We're constantly in this experimental phase. Yes. So, and two, as we're setting up a relationship, and I just got off a Love Club interview, and one of the things that is really important in the Love Club that we live by, our values are: 1, no attachment to outcome, growth comes first. 2, both parties agree to own their own shit. 3, all feelings are welcome and no internal process is condemned. And 4, this is a place to practice love.
I love those. Very nice. Yeah. To close off on the girlfriend that didn't make me feel comfortable, I think I got off on the relationship got off on the wrong foot, in that I had long haul COVID really badly in 2020 and 2021, right when they met. And they fell deeply in love. And I was practicing my compersion so hard, to help them, because I couldn't even get out of bed. So It wasn't like I could put any attention on my husband. I was so ill. And I think where it went wrong was that I wasn't able to train her to be the kind of partner that worked well in a dynamic with me. And if I had, in the future, as my husband is interested in other women, I would be healthy enough to be more proactive around, look, here are some of the things that are going to make it work really well in the dynamic of being with a couple. And whether I'm interested in her being with her or not, just having her in my home and being with my partner and all of those kinds of things. So that was my biggest takeaway. What my two biggest takeaways were: I fought for my marriage. I fought for what I needed. I stood for myself, and I've forgiven myself for not doing a good job of onboarding her because I literally couldn't even get up. So, I've had a lot of good takeaways from that. And the other piece that I will tell you is that one of my boyfriends is very much an introvert. And he's just like, I just like to be with you, and I'll be with you when I can be with you. And the other one is like, I just love women and I love to go on dates. And he dates a lot of women, and he gives them yoni massages. He has learned how to give yoni massages, beautiful expanded orgasm dates. And he doesn't need to put his mouth on her genitals or put his genitals in her genitals. He can have a super fun, very erotic, incredibly sexy time coming the shit out of her and feel really great about himself and get his needs to be flirty and sexy with a wide variety of women in a super safe way where he can have his cake and eat it too. So he calls me up constantly and he's telling me about, I talk to him twice a day, and he has a lot of dates. He's on the apps and he's dating women, but he's not having intercourse with them because that's off limits. And he's not going down on them because that's off limits. But he's got some great gals that totally love and enjoy him. And I love them doing that. And I have no jealousy at all over that. Well, and he also is like, you're my number one, baby. You know, you are, like that kind of thing, which I also really appreciate because we all need that adoration and respect as well in partnership. So those were just two little things I wanted to say to kind of close stuff off. And talk about what it is that what do I do when I have a new partner? Knowing what I know now, what do I do when I have a new partner? And I've gotten through the STI test and I'm now having a physical relationship with them. And a couple of the things that I bring to the table that I think are really beneficial that I would encourage people to practice, because sex is a practice, just like everything else. We get better as we get older. We have more skill. We understand our bodies. We're less judgy. We're more open. We're willing to take more risks. We're just more mature. And one of the very first things that I like to do is I like to make a lot of offers to a partner. Oh, here are some of the things that I was thinking might be really fun to do together. I've got these fantasies about you. These are some things I've been thinking I'd like to do together. That really breaks the ice and gives them some ideas of things that I would find pleasurable, and then they can be like, oh, I love that one and I like that one. Or yeah, I'm doing them all. Let's do all those, So I think that being willing to say the kinds of like dirty little fantasies and dreams you're having about that person sexually is really nice. And then that encourages them to do it back to you. Oh, well, you know what I'd really like? I'd really like it if you did this to me and we did this together and I've tried this thing. So I think that's one. And that comes from a technique that I have called the Sexual Soulmate Pact, PACT, like an agreement. It basically overcomes a couple of issues. One is, I don't know what I want. I just know what I'm getting isn't it. Another one is, I'm afraid if I say something to them, they'll contract and they'll, basically just like emotionally fall apart and take it as failure. And then they won't want to do anything and they'll shut me down. And the Sexual Soulmate Pact is an agreement that I don't need to go into it in detail because you can download it at sexualsoulmatepact.com and that'll just move the conversation forward. But I think that it is the foundation of everything. Like I could teach you a million sex techniques. I could teach you how to do, cock worship and pussy worship. I could teach you how to do yoni massages and lingam massages. I could teach you how to actually have orgasmic intercourse and know what to do with your penis so you will make her have orgasms when you fuck her. I could teach you, like a million things. But if I don't teach you that first, if I don't give you the confidence to speak for yourself and the ability to have your partner feel like, oh, I'm winning now because they're telling me the things I need to know to do a great job. If you can get your partner in that frame of mind, it's not failure. Oh yeah, I'm hungry for your feedback. Thank you. What else? Thank you. More. Tell me everything. I love it. When you have that dynamic in your relationship where there's nothing you can't say at any time without going please and thank you, because please and thank you is honestly kind of please is a turn on killer. Thank you is a turn on creator. When you have to get out of your turn on head to be like, oh, would you mind please going to the left? Then you're in your like good girl kind of mind. And when you can just be like, oh yeah, left, go left. And your partner's like, thank you. And how's this? It just keeps you in connection in a funny little way that's surprising. Like you think you need your manners and you don't for the saying, but for the acknowledging you really do, because a person who's taking the risk to ask for something needs encouragement and approval for doing so. And for a long time before they trust that it's real and legitimate and that you're actually really wanting it. And then they open up to even more. And then things get super hot and sexy because you want intimacy? Tell the fucking truth all the time, unfiltered, and have your partner be like, yes, give me more. That's the meat I like to chew. So I think that's the number one thing is like, just learn how to speak up confidently. So the sexual soulmate pact, boom, lay down that foundation, then bring your fun ideas and throw them out. Give people a set point of where you are and what would be fun and create that. Roll out that red carpet for them to walk back to you with what they desire. And then you start really getting on what I like to call the upward pleasure spiral. That's very conscious connection, that kind of communicative behavior, that honesty, that vulnerability, etc. Really, really a good start.
I love the truth telling, the practice of truth telling, and even as you're setting up intimacy with someone else or negotiating what that looks like, getting in that, putting yourself in these positions where you can just practice. Because I know for me of being, I've spent the past 2 decades of my life not in a long-term relationship, more in, having a short-term relationship here and there. And each and every person's intimacy journey is going to be so unique and different. But going into these experiences like this is practice creates less heaviness and less weight for it, and also to even do it from the start. Because in the very beginning, you have less to lose. So if you start off a connection, committing to tell the truth moment by moment, you will more uncover yourself. You'll continue to actually uncover your truth, because sometimes to even understand your truth, you have to have experiences to even know what that even is. And then I'll say, we're living in such a fascinating time. What is available to us, and the wisdom keepers that have now, collected this information and knowledge. You with having this, soulmate pact. What did you call it again?
Sexual soulmate pact. Sexual
soulmate pact. That is even available to us is renowned. And also, I mentioned Kimmy Inch's program. There's so much available now, because when you say that you can speak your desires to your partner and bring that fun into it, there's a lot of people probably listening being like, I don't even know what that looks like.
I have a good answer for that. One of the things that I realized was that people like communication skills and sex techniques, but what they're looking for is ideas for fun times. And when you bring that Buddhist beginner's mind to a relationship, like, this is all brand new for both of us. We're just going to learn together and we're going to try some new things. Like, I'll tell you that body dynamics are one of the most interesting things about sexuality. There are certain things that feel really, really good with one person that don't feel good with any other people. There are specialities that each lover has that are so fun to explore. I mean, one of my boyfriends right now is he's an ass man. he is so good at giving me anal that at 62, I'm finally like, oh my God, I've had it once or twice and it's been pretty good. But now it's just like, oh man, it's like, it's so good, and it's took me this long to get there, but finally I got an ass man that knew what he was doing. And so I'm having these really great, sex with a couple of my partners simultaneously and doing things I've never done before that are really nice. And one of the things that I put together, so one of my mentors was Dr. Patty Taylor. She taught me the expanded orgasm practice, which I've been teaching couples for 2 decades now. And it's one of the foundation techniques of this ecosystem that I was talking about, of these fundamental skills that I think if everyone learned, they'd have much more satisfying sex. And one of the parts of that is that when you learn how to have an expanded orgasm practice, she created these 21 erotic play dates, and each one of the 21 play dates teaches you one facet of having this incredible co-creative orgasmic experience together, this expanded orgasm practice. And the erotic playdate thing really stuck with me. Taking this time when you're not having sex. When you talk about having sex, most people are like, they're all the way down to, I'm going to just grab a boob and stick it in, or we're going to make out for a little bit and then I'm going to stick it in, or whatever. It's like very intercourse focused. And I love intercourse. I learned how to be orgasmic with intercourse. It's fantastic. My cock riding is chef's kiss these days. But I want to do all the things and I want to be as good at 69 and going down on somebody and getting my pussy eaten and having hot makeouts and giving lingam massages and getting yoni massage. Everything should be equally unbelievably fantastic. And that comes with skill and practice. And so the notion of erotic play dates is find a partner that you enjoy being with, have great conscious communication with them, and then decide to learn new things together. So I put together something I call my sex life bucket list. It's at sexlifebucketlist.com. And it's a PDF that you download that has 48 different erotic playdate ideas. And none of them are the kind of thing that would gross you out if you were with a partner and you'd be like, oh God, why would anybody ever want to do that? It's no yuck. It's all yum generally. There's you'd be hard pressed to find a yuck in there for almost anybody. It's really nice, sweet, super sexy, sensual, heart connected, conscious, passionate, lovemaking pleasure ideas. And it comes with a video where it's like your first erotic play date. If you're lucky enough to have a partner, you can walk through it. I'll walk you through all 48, explain what they are, and then you mark them A's, B's, or C's. A is, oh God, this is definitely going on my bucket list. I need to find my friggin' G spot. I want to learn how to ejaculate, whatever it is. Where's my P spot? Whatever it is. I want to become a multi-orgasmic man, like basics. And then B's are, it's not for me, but if you want to do it, I am totally in support of going on that journey with you. You want to be pegged? Let me learn how. So C's are, it's not for me right now. And never say never, because I wasn't big into anal till I was 62. God knows what 72 is going to bring. I can't wait. So I like it because then if you're solo and you're looking for a partner and you go through the sex life bucket list, you can do a lot of these things yourself. A lot of them are orgasmic expansion, orgasmic cross training, all kinds of fun things you can do solo, so that by the time you're with someone, you're just like a massively confident, multi-orgasmic person who's not going to worry, will I come, or will I come too fast, or whatever. And then if you're lucky enough to have a partner, or you've got a new partner, you can be like, let's make a bucket list and let's begin as beginners together and learn new things. And if you've been with someone for 100 years like I have, it's also great. Honestly, Tim and I have done every single thing on that bucket list already. So I have to think of even more stuff all the time, which I do. But what's great about it is that even if you're with someone in a long-term relationship, you haven't done all 48 of those things because you're not a professional sexpert. So there's something there for you and your partner to begin as beginners and have an erotic play date too. So I think the sex life bucket list is really one of those things that's like, okay, you've got a new partner, you're establishing your communications, you're saying, there's going to be times when I've got boundaries. Like, if we're going out to dinner, don't mess up my makeup and hair. Like, I just don't want to have to redo it. If we're just going to have, like we have an hour and a half for sex and then we have to make it to the restaurant. So just don't fuck up my shit. Great. That's a boundary right now. The next time you have sex, you're like, just completely make me a disaster. Let's do anything and everything. Smear my eye makeup. I'll just go wash my face. Let's just go. And, so I like those short-term boundaries as well as a really good communication tool that I wanted to make sure I kind of wedged in there. But I think the sex life bucket list is one of those things that's like, I need a little direction around what's possible in my sex life, whether you're solo or you're with someone new or you're with someone for 30 years. I think that's like, wow, I never thought about all this stuff. Or, I thought about it, but I'm going to get intentional around this now.
Such amazing resources. I will share all of them in the description of this podcast. And the sex life bucket list. Yeah. I have, I always look for relationship role models. Mm-hmm. And one of them is Yosef Sagi and Natalie. And they met on a dating app, I think Bumble, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And they're both practicing Tantra. Mm-hmm. And they decided after, the first, it might even been that they had it in their profile. And they met up and they said, let's practice Tantra together.
Yes. Research partners, what I call that.
Research partners. And mm-hmm. they eventually fell in love, but it became, for me is one of the primary reasons that I want to be in relationship is for sex.
Me too.
And this type of thing, like the sex life bucket list, mm-hmm. somebody like using that as like, who is a practice partner and whatever happens from there, you can begin to, this would be another interesting question. And I could talk to you for hours. We could unpack a lot more because it's, as you're,
I got to go work out.
Me too. I actually have a Love Club interview waiting for me, but I'm thinking about like, if, what could be a pin in another conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Is that as you then start experimenting sexually, how do you also make sure that it's not clouded and you can evaluate the potential of a long-term relationship at the same time?
That's your values work. So one of my books, I don't think I have it right here. One of my books is called Relationship Magic. And that's probably the book that I've been on television the most to talk about. TV loves that particular book because it's relationship and not sex, because they're allergic to sex. And it's basically an NLP values elicitation process that helps you understand what it is you want most out of a relationship. What are your top 4 relationship values? It has a lot of possible values and it walks you. It's a workbook. It's at myrelationshipmagic.com. That one's not free. It's $9.97 or something for the PDF, but it's $27 on Amazon. So don't go there. And what it helps you do is get really clear before you get into a relationship, what it is you want out of a relationship. And those values stay pretty stable your whole life. It's really interesting, especially when you're in a relationship with someone, you both have totally different relationship values. And so if you know what your partners are and you get up every day and you just focus on their top 4 things, often you'll find that they've chosen you because you already meet a couple of them and they're kind of like in the way you relate to them. And a couple of them are ones you need to actually pay attention to and make sure you give them, and vice versa. And what the relationship values elicitation workbook does is it helps you rank, order, prioritize what you cannot live without in a relationship. So that before you get into it, if you feel like you're giving up a thing that's in your tops, you'll know this isn't going to go the distance. but boy, is he fun to fuck or whatever. So that I think really, really helps you. It's one of those other fundamental pieces where when you're standing on your values and you know what the four legs of the stable stool of your values are, you can be much more sovereign, much more choosy, and much more guided to the light of your own desire rather than getting blown, your candle being blown in the wind of hoping they're going to meet your needs. The other thing is that when you know your needs and you can tell your partner, here are the things I need to feel like I'm in the best relationship in the world. This is the stuff that makes a difference for me. And you give them very specific examples of things that they can do. They're either going to do them or they're not. And you're going to know if they can.
Susan, thank you so much for this conversation. You are a wealth of information on the full spectrum of human relating. We will at some point do a second podcast conversation. Is there anything else that you want to make sure people know before we do end this?
I guess the only thing that I would say is that if anything that I've said resonates with you and you'd like to be on my email newsletter, I do publish my thoughts. I've written over 6,000 articles over the last 2 decades. And so I send them out an email with videos, audios. I'm on podcasts a lot. And so you can kind of keep up with what I'm doing and my free and paid resources and what's available. And that's at betterlover.com. The email sign up is right there. And then if you're on my newsletter, you can reply to anything I send you, and I'll personally get your reply. And I've got hundreds of thousands of people who read my newsletter, so it may take me a week or two to get back to you. But you can ask me anything. And often I've already explained it somewhere, or I have a video about it, or what have you. But if it's something that requires me, I'll tell you, I just have been I'll go back and forth with you, and I'll ask you more questions in the discovery process of you trying to kind of even understand what you're asking or what you want. And then you'll finally get to a conclusion about the direction to go, or how to solve a problem, or how to get what you need. And that's really my pleasure, because I'm not a therapist. I don't see people one-on-one. I'm a publisher and author of passionate lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills. And so you emailing me your questions makes me better. So you're doing me a favor, it's a very symbiotic relationship I have with my fans of my newsletter. So betterlover.com is the place to go for that.
Congratulations. Congratulations on all that you have created. Like, your work has been through years. It's so like years of experimenting and time and energy placed in this arena. And it's so impactful. A lot of times social entrepreneurs are celebrated. You should be at the top of the celebrational list, because this is one of the most important aspects of our existence and which keeps us going. I personally think it might be the solution to all the world's problems. So thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. If you want to follow along on the behind the scenes of the making of the documentary about this work, it's at thegift.film.
Thank you, Susan. I will include all these links in the description of the podcast, so read down below and check them out. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Again, if you do enjoy the show, please do like, subscribe, follow, rate it. It helps more people find it, helps me continue to host it. And while I love talking with you in this way, what I love even more is being with you in person. So definitely check out that calendar, join us in the Love Club. And until next time, bye for now.